her purpose should be found elsewhere or be better directed. I'd submit that one of the striking things about anti-Semitism is that it seems, very sadly, to be a human perennial. And I say that because all the evidence points that way. It's also a shapeshifter. It's probably the greatest shapeshifter in history. There are people who used to hate the Jews because of their religion. And then at some point it became less acceptable to hate people because of their religion. And then the Jews were hated because of their race. And then at some point in the 20th century it became not so good to hate people because of their race. But there was one twist left, which was that the Jews who were hated by anti-Semites because they were stateless were suddenly hated because they had a state. It's one of the insights of a number of writers that the Jews get hated for absolutely every reason. It's an unbelievable fact. The Jews have been hated historically and by people in the world today, and even on people on X today, for all of the following reasons. They have been hated because they've been poor, and they've been hated because they've been rich. They've been hated because they have not integrated into society, and they get hated for integrating into the society. They get hated for, as I say, being rootless cosmopolitans, and then for being Zionists who dare to have a state and not be rootless. Vasily Grossman, one of my heroes, the great Russian 20th century writer and journalist, took time out in the middle of his masterpiece, Life and Fate, to write about this question. And to my mind, Vasily Grossman said almost everything that can be said about anti-Semitism. Grossman, who was Jewish himself, covered the Battle of Stalingrad. He was the first journalist into Treblinka. And he knew an awful lot about human evil. And in the middle of Life and Fate, which gravitates around that midnight of the 20th century, halfway through this 900-page novel, halfway through at the midnight of the midnight, Grossman takes 3 pages to write about anti-Semitism. And he says something which can't be said often enough, and I wish more people knew. He talks about the way, he says, in which it's something you can meet everywhere. He says you can meet it in the Academy of Sciences and in the games that children play in the schoolyard. He says it takes many forms, from a mocking, contemptuous ill will to murderous pogroms. Then he says this: anti-Semitism is always a means rather than an end. It is a measure of the contradictions yet to be resolved. It is a mirror for the failings of individuals, social structures, and state systems. Tell me what you accuse the Jews of, and I'll tell you what you're guilty of. And there's an additional one in Muslim anti-Semitism, which Bernard Lewis, among others, pointed out, which is, imagine what it's like if you've been told you've got the final revelation from God, and the Jews are doing better than you. That's uncomfortable. So there's a lot of things it boils down to, but I would say envy is one of the deep, deep things in it. And as I said earlier from Vasily Grossman, look at all the people who are, what are they doing? These I call them the Ronin. In medieval Japan, there was a class of person known as the Ronin who, they were people who had sworn fealty to a liege lord, a samurai warrior king, and their leader had died. And the Ronin were men, qualified warriors, who would walk around the land searching for a new lord to swear their oath to. That came to mind the other day when I looked at Greta Thunberg. A few years ago, she came to some prominence because something that made me understand medieval Europe a bit better is when somebody from a country in the north with blazing eyes, a child, tells you you're all going to burn. I think, wow, that makes me understand the Middle Ages a little bit better. But first of all, she was for the green thing, and now she's still with the colour green, so you've got to give her some consistency. But now it's Hamas. Where did it end up that Greta Thunberg, trying to save us from fossil fuels, would end up in a square in Sweden screaming at a beautiful young Jewish singer? Only a lost soul, desperately staggering around the land, looking for purpose. Maybe her purpose should be found elsewhere or be better directed.